Hi everybody, thanks a million for tuning in today. I'm so delighted to be joined by Dr. Louise Cleary. Louise, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So today we're just going to link in about some hopeful suggestions and tips for parents and kids and hopefully teachers for the homeschooling going on at the moment. So hopefully, anything that we provide today might be of use for people trying to get through the Monday to Friday of the, volume of homeschooling that will be happening for now and for however many weeks, I suppose, that goes on for. Hopefully not too many more, but you never know what's going to happen. So Louise, maybe we can kick off and just give us a bit of background about yourself and how you've ended up in the space that you're in.
Sure. So I'm a behavioural psychologist. I work with children with social, emotional, behavioural and educational needs. I work in private practice. I came into this field as a person with an additional need myself. I'm visually impaired, so I suppose I had the first-hand knowledge of what it was like to navigate primary and secondary school, with some extra considerations. I wasn't able to see the blackboard or the whiteboard in college as I was growing up, and so I suppose I had to learn novel ways around getting through school, and so would have used some assistive technology and things like that. I would have attended resource and had grinds and things like this all through my my education.
And
So
what do you find the most helpful, Louise? Like you mentioned kind of, assistive technology there and, additional tuition and, linking it, I suppose, with the school and the teachers. Did you find it a kind of accumulation of all of them helped to move you forward? Or do you find one set path that you found, oh, that was great, that really helped me progress in academia?
Yeah, I think the grinds really, for me, the grinds really helped me working one-to-one with somebody that I was very fortunate to be sanctioned some Department of Education hours. I think it was 2 a week. So I always had a primary school teacher teaching me and working with me at night to go through just various things and whatever I was doing in school. So I think that was the most impactful, having a human being to work with. But I would have used magnifying glasses and some Zoom software. Like now I use a MacBook computer because it zooms kind of web applications and anything that's just any programs on the computer. So it's great. I think, stigma free assistive technology like the Apple products are fantastic.
Exactly. And I suppose that we're so fortunate, with so many advancements in technology, both for reading and writing and, spelling, and that will only hopefully progress and move forward, which is definitely probably as an organically flow. They're probably one of our main, maybe first tips for any bits of homeschooling. Obviously, everybody's on laptops and computers and all of that sort of things, but getting the right devices, I'm sure you were saying that, Louise, finding the right ones so that Apple computer worked for you, or not always accessible, I know, for different families and different economic circumstances.
Yeah.
But where possible, finding that device, particularly over this time, that fits, so if it's a particular laptop or if it's an iPad, having that suit the student is definitely groundbreaking. I'm sure you'd find that too as well.
It is, and I think some laptops can be quite clunky and take a while to open and load up. So, if it's a child, say for example, with dyslexia that's using a laptop, it's very important that they can flip open that computer and get going and start typing down what the homework is, or there might only be a number of seconds, and then again, if they lose their place, that's so often the story, with some students, that they lose their place and they're just, it can be really hard, emotionally, to feel like you're not keeping up. So it's really important that we set students up for success and we give them all the accommodations that we can.
Definitely. And I suppose, as you touched on a very important point there about the emotional piece, and obviously, you know, emotions are all over the place. Some are good and some are in between, and you know, however we want to categorize them as up to each individual. But any suggestions that you might have, you know, for parents at the moment trying to, you know, manage the kid dynamic, and particularly the homeschooling frustration, you know, that's evident on both sides, you know, and on a teacher side as well. That's kind of evident throughout the sphere at the moment.
Mm. I think whatever space you're working in the house doing the school work, making sure that doesn't become associated with you know, adversity and kind of tension and arguments and tears and upset, you know. So doing fun things at the table as well as things, difficult tasks can be really important, so that just so that yeah, so that the kids are happy to sit down, and they don't, you know, expect, you know, that it's just going to be tough. But also just focusing on non-academic things as well, I think, is really important, just on a general well-being level. Getting out in nature, really important. There's so much research emerging now into the healing properties of being out in nature and helping us just to clear our heads and things and just feel better. Exercise, you know, it's really important, particularly for children that have additional needs. They may have kind of sensory needs, occupational therapy considerations there as well. You know, if those needs aren't met and those cups aren't full, they won't be available to learn. So it can be really good proactive strategy to get movement in before you sit down and do a lesson. So maybe first thing in the morning, go for the walk after the breakfast. Yeah, and then just maybe another thing I would say is sandwiching, you know, the harder tasks between two enjoyable tasks, and just lots and lots of praise for effort, and not just for you know, correct things. And when you're giving that corrective feedback, just again sandwiching it between the two nice kind of nice pieces. Yeah, right, really like what you did there, we'll watch out for that in future, but well done. Like you did a lot of, you could really see that you tried today, and yeah, just keeping it happy. And
that positive, I suppose, reinforcement, you know, does help a huge amount, which is great. And as you said, that sandwich technique, which, you know, is referred to in all, you know, dynamics to try and help people, you know, in presentations or in all of those types of things, it really is very effective, you know, to be like, look, you did really well, or this is something that we could improve upon, and then listen, we'll try again now with it tomorrow, or we'll, you know, go again at it, you know, and trying to have that, you know, lightness to it, you know. And I always find with the kids that I work with, it's never like, oh, that's wrong, or, you know, that's the wrong spelling. It's just like, oh, we'll try again with it, or we're close, you know, until we can keep getting closer, or we'll change letters around, we're really close to getting it, you want to try it again. Kind of taking a different attitude to like, no, that's wrong now, and a big red line through it, and like, you know, just go again. And it's just very defeating, you know. And it's very much like a child or a student can kill themselves like trying to spell that word or trying to come up with that paragraph for an essay, and for it to be torn to shreds so quickly is just unbelievable. Like, it just destroys your soul. And I don't think lots of people get that you know, as we've had various different difficulties in a background perspective, you know, people that maybe got through education or academia quite smoothly, and I don't really get that, you know. And it just takes something else out of you, like, that you have to, you know, build. And I suppose with that, then you get all the fabulous resilient strengths, as I'm sure, you know, you have lots there as well, Louise, from what we've been through. But it does come, you know, with elements of a trade-off as well. There's no doubt about that.
Definitely.
But it was so interesting about you saying of, you know, doing good things in a place and then doing bits of the schoolwork, so that you don't associate. You know, it's fascinating, because as you were saying it, I was thinking, I had, you know, an area in my house where I was growing up that I used to do loads of my schoolwork. Now, thankfully, it was separate. I would always suggest that as well, separate to a bedroom where possible. But I used to always then associate, like, there'd be the door and you'd close the door and you just, the dread would just sink in, because you knew, right, when you're in there or when you're going in there, you walked in a bit of a hall and I had to go into the room. I knew there was nothing else I was doing when I went in there. You know, it was either schoolwork or study, or I was going to sleep. Like, that was, you know, there was nothing else on the table. So very interesting that you're saying trying to link in positive stuff with a surrounding, how negative we can associate a surrounding based upon our emotions, you know.
Completely. And it's that applies not only to like the environment, the physical environment, the room, the door, the sound of the door closing, that can apply to sometimes people. Sometimes we can associate people, you know, in a kind of aversive way. And so in fact, this would be a really good tip for you know, when working with behaviors that challenge with children and parents. You know, one thing that a behaviorist would always say is don't always be the bearer of the demands and the requests. Sometimes just be the bearer of good stuff, and like sometimes appear with, you know, do you want to do this? Do you want to play this game with, you know, yummy food items, activities? So there's not always, when we hear that, you know, Sean, you know, it's not always like, what? You know, it could be, it could be good. So just kind of mixing it up and keeping that, so that we don't associate our parents with just like demand only, you know, really, really important. And anyone who's worked in education settings knows so much about that we have to sometimes scrap the
plan goes out the window.
Yeah, right. Scrap the plan and just do fun things and just recondition ourselves up.
It's, as you said, their choice, which is so valuable, particularly at the moment where people feel, and kids feel, obviously being out of school and missing their friends, that lots of people feel that we interact with as well, you know, that they don't have much choice, you know, there's nothing to do, you know, and all of that type of thing. And yes, people do ultimately still have a decision, you know, at the end of the day. Do they want to make a productive day? Do they want to still go out and about and get in bits of their exercise, or do they not want to, you know? And I suppose that's what we have to bring it back down to, that, you know, in a parent context, you know, at home with their homeschooling, giving them that element of choice at least gives that some bit of, you know, oh, I can kind of decide, you know. Ultimately, I know obviously the work still needs to be done to some level, but, you know, just having them give that element of feedback, you know, I'm sure it creates more of that engagement as well.
Completely. And like when you're speaking about choice there and that sense of control, like giving children that sense of control, we all need that as humans. And particularly around times like now, you know, where things are so stressful, and for all of us, there's so much kind of you know, threat signals, you know, everywhere, that we sometimes need to kind of look at things that we can control. And so offering that choice to kids can be really, really powerful in making them feel autonomous over their schedule or their day. You know, it's, do you want to do what, you know, do you want to do this or do you want to do that, you know, and them feeling like they're in the driver's seat somewhat, you know.
Totally. And you
Really
said
important.
then they gain more autonomy and control, I suppose, aspects of the day, as I'm sure you would recognize as well, Louise, that scheduling element. How, you know, do you feel that that's useful during this particular time? I know we were saying some days the plan will go out the window, but, you know, what advice might you give to parents around trying to, you know, schedule the bits of time for homeschooling? Would you recommend that it try and stay a consistent time? Obviously, you know, everybody's household is different, but what kind of advice might you give around that topic?
Yeah, we know that like routine is really, really good at times where we're kind of losing that sense of control, and that internal locus of control, as sometimes referred to. And so having, you know, having some control, having some control over elements of your day that you can, is really beneficial. So I think, while scrapping the plan for doing just academic stuff at the table is definitely sometimes merited, I still think keeping some structure on the day, that the morning perhaps will be the time where we sit down and do the tabletop work, and then the afternoon is a little bit less, a little bit, less structured maybe. So yeah, I think holding some kind of routine is very, very good for us all. It creates an element of predictability, and that's,
Completely.
again, in times of uncertainty, we need to hold on to the things that we can kind of control, and so that we
Completely.
feel okay, right, there's a plan.
Exactly. And I suppose the balancing element of, the day can kind of get ahead of then everybody with, bits of homeschooling, depending upon what's, class or year a student might be in. Sometimes it can spread out to hours and hours. I work with some kids, and some of the students maybe in exam years can be, yes, they might have a few minutes break here and there, but obviously that consistency element of, the bell ringing, you move on to the next class, isn't really there. So I'm finding that only kids that I deal with, generally speaking, what they might have done before in half an hour, 40 minutes, now could take them twice, if not three times the time, and moving around the house or checking the phone, or again, for older students. So it's definitely trying to, I would think, kind of pinpointing that, right. We look at the work to do today, roughly, it's not always an exact indicator, but how much kind of will we proportion to each task? Because otherwise it can be 7, 8 o'clock in the night and the
Mm.
student's still looking at some of the schoolwork.
Yeah, yeah. So it can kind of drag on if you don't put a bit of
Mhm.
structure on it almost.
Definitely.
Yeah, you need a goal, you need some of us take, I know I certainly would be this type of learner. I would definitely use up every little minute of time that I have. I'd stretch it out. But I think as well, I just something came up for me there as you were saying that about some people are, and I think we spoke about this before as well. Um, some people are night owls, and some people work better at nighttime.
Completely.
Um, so yeah, I think knowing that about yourself, and kind of I think that kind of almost ties into the sense of autonomy and sense of control piece of, like, actually asking the adolescent kind of aged students or children, saying, like, if you work better after dinner and in the nighttime, like, that's fine, and allowing them that, because they may well, they may well be able to do something in an hour at that time than
Exactly.
2 hours in the
Yeah.
morning. Yeah,
You said we all work off a different, body clock, and it takes,
yeah,
some longer to kind of establish that or know where their peak time is. I know when we were
mm,
speaking about it before, mine was always definitely a nighttime. Now that's kind of evolved throughout the years now since, but particularly in university, it was the nighttime thing, and no
mm,
problem, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But as we were, I suppose, pointing out, then you do need to then get in the sleep as well. Like, that can't compromise. You can't then get up at 9 o'clock and go again. So it does need to. You do need to maintain the sleep and
mm,
consistency if you are doing late nights. And that's your realm to try and operate in. Not suited for everybody. Some people's body clock then will be all over the place. They wouldn't be able to do that, or they might do it, for an exam and then go back to a different pattern. It very
yeah,
much is kind of trial and error, really. But I definitely think, as the late kind of teens, in that kind of fourth, fifth, sixth year type of setup in secondary school, trying to
mm,
understand where your actual peak time is, and then trying to maximize that is essential.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, and structuring it up, like putting, as you said, like setting your timer is, you shouldn't, if you kind of allow yourself the whole night, you'll take the whole night maybe, so maybe just saying, like, no, at the I'm setting my timer on my phone for 9 o'clock, and at that time, when the timer goes off, I'm closing my books, and it's about doing just what you can in that time, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
I
doing your
suppose
best in
when
that time and not going on.
Yeah, and when you find, Louise, let's say, when they get to the end of the week now, when they've submitted X amount of work, and both from a parent and from a student perspective, do you find it helpful to have like little milestones of, celebrate, as everybody says, celebrate the wins and celebrate all the achievements? Do you find that, people at home now should create, oh, well done, you did this bit today, now we'll do something, fun, or we try and, do something that we mightn't do? Do you find that might help at the moment during bits of
yeah, I think parents are already doing that, aren't they? Like they have to. They've been like I think we've all learned that like that really is very effective, that kind of reward based approach. And as adults we need to do that for ourselves too. We work to our next break, we work to our coffee break, we work to our getting paid, we work to our weekend, and we all need like milestones, we all need a goal in sight, and kind of like treats and rewards and stuff like that can look very different to different people, like depending on what their preference is. But for some of us it's just and for some children it's just finishing the task alone is satisfying in itself, and just kind of being able to just switch to a different activity, that can be a reward in itself, that kind of escape, so
yeah, definitely.
It doesn't always have to be, a Kinder Egg or, a trip to Smith's. Like it should look, it has to, if you're going to implement a reward system, it needs to be realistic.
Totally. Yeah. And that element of choice in that, as you're saying, like obviously it's not always, can't go fly on the unicorn there out the back, but it has to be, something that, is achievable, and then obviously within everybody's remit of their own personal circumstances as well. But definitely kind of trying to get through bits and pieces, they'd be particularly for, I think, we're younger kids as well, they'll be used to that, weekly tests and, getting that Friday kind of downtime, or, stars or whatever mechanism is used in the school, and kind of that being not reinforced as much anymore with the homeschooling, to have that substitute, whatever that may look like in each individual's home context. But having that kind of put in place will help, recharge, reboot, and then hopefully go again then on the Monday,
Definitely. And we know from like behavioral research that we as humans, we satiate to the kind of the we can kind of satiate to the effect, like to the impact of the reward. So the same thing, giving the same reward all the time can kind of, it can lose its reinforcing value, and therefore impact motivation. So changing up the reward, as I say, sometimes some children and some humans, some adults, like sorry, not humans, some adults respond really, really well to praise alone. And we know from like research in organizational behavior management that in fact delivering praise can actually increase productivity more so than paying people more. Just recognizing people's efforts and saying, really like noticed your hard work there, like that was really good. Making sure it's coming from mum and dad, as well. I think lockdowns, I've heard a lot of from people I work with, I've heard a lot of parents say that the lockdown has actually helped, it's helped relationships. So for dads and and mums, because parents are around more. So
totally. And it's interesting, as we're saying, from different students with different ways of learning. I find that that engagement more at home, or the parent being there a bit more if they can with bits of homeschooling, they now can point out this, we might need to work on this area, can you do that when you have class next? All of those regular interactions that are there now, way more so than the student or the child being 6-7 hours in school. So there's definitely lots of advantages we can take from the situation. I know there's obviously challenges and struggles as well, but definitely for students that have a different way of learning, this time can be maximized massively with trying to either catch up or trying to move forward or trying to learn things in a different way, and trying to play to their strengths instead of being sitting in a classroom all day and trying to, as you said, look at a blackboard or trying to read off a piece of paper and it's just not working, So there's definitely things that can help now, and we can move and pivot to suit that particular child where possible at home, you know. But it is so interesting, I suppose, all your suggestions from today, Louise. Any last minute, you know, advice or tips that you might share with any of the parents and teachers watching us?
I think just sometimes we can get really overwhelmed with the by looking at the entire load of what we need to get through. And you know, for parents, I would say just really, it sounds very cliche, but celebrate the small victories. And if your child is struggling, or indeed like a teenager, if they're struggling with one small area and they master one word, or they get down, you know, 1 or 2 words in a day, that's amazing. That's huge. You know, that's a huge outcome for a day. That's a really productive day. So just sometimes success can look different, you know, on different days. And sometimes if it's, say, a maths, you know, a maths thing of adding or whatever like that, and you're, you know, use the chocolate buttons instead of the, you know, whatever, you know, like use novel things and use chips, like use whatever. And you know, if it's 1 and 1 is equals 2, and you're, you know, like that's huge to learn in one day. So say just to parents, like just to celebrate your efforts and don't kill yourself, you know, with
Yeah,
trying to
everything in
get everything.
moderation, as you
Yeah.
said, maintaining bits of balance, doing what they can, and
Mm.
you know, knowing that things will come out the other side, and have a bit of trust, and you know, everything will work out for the best.
Yeah,
But listen,
totally.
Louise, thanks a million for joining us today. Really all fabulous collective group of insights. And thanks everybody for tuning in. If you have any questions, either for myself or Louise, don't hesitate to get in touch with us, either on my page at Blossom for Life, or on Louise's page at Dr. Louise Cleary. And we will have another video coming for you soon. So thanks a million, everybody, and stay well.
Thank you.